Hello guys, I'm Ax. I aspire to be a better coach in the future and learn more about the game. I had to say the very least an interesting idea concerning freezing and unfreezing a lane. I will talk briefly about freezing and its counterplay and its causes. Then I'll propose to you my idea, which is still a theory, and I hope you like it. Enjoy the video. So guys, what is freezing? It's just simply holding the minion wave in a specific place, keeping it stagnant for a period of time, or sometimes you can achieve a permanent freeze. Sometimes the minion wave push back due to minion aggro or the cannon minion, but as I said, you can achieve a permanent freeze. Freezing is a very helpful mechanic. It's really good. You can deny the enemy a lot of gold and XP, which put them behind very badly and making them a liability for the team. I don't see a lot of pro players use it. I don't know why, but I hope they do in the future. It's a really good mechanic. So now whether we are frozen upon or we are freezing on the enemy, what causes the freeze to happen? First, we have bad trades in lane. Bad trades in lane are essentially is you are hitting your enemy, you are trading with your enemy, and you don't drop aggro of the minions. So his minions are hitting you instead of hitting your minions, therefore your wave is healthy and pushes to him, giving him the advantage of doing with the lane what he likes. Second cause is bad wave management. Maybe you messed up a slow push. Maybe you pushed too fast. You didn't know how to push or when to push. And thirdly, bad roaming slash recalling time. Sometimes your teammates just ping you, help me, help me, help me now, or you want to roam or you want to base for an item you need, and you don't look at the wave state. You leave the wave pushing into him, and you, therefore you're giving him power to do whatever he wants with the wave. So I suggest every time you want to roam or recall, you should crash the wave under his tower. Unless it's a must you recall now or roam now, then it's fine. But always, you should crash the wave under his tower. Now, what do we do when we get frozen upon? How can you counter the freeze? Well, if you got frozen upon, what's your options? What do you have? Either you try to break the freeze, or take jungle camps, sharing XP with your jungler and put your jungler more behind, and or pressure other points on the map, which is not effective also because sometimes you cannot make that pressure because all the lane are shoved in and you cannot roam very fast, so you be just lost. To this day, in the game, we have two ways to break the freeze. Essentially, the first one is crashing the wave completely under the enemy tower by ourselves. We just use our abilities on the minion wave and hopefully we crashed in the tower. But this kind of scenario is a bit different. And the other scenario is we call for our teammate to help us and break the freeze. This is the common one. The first one is not that common, but the second one is what people go to break the freeze. So, in both scenarios, we are bound to a condition to break the freeze. The first one, we cannot always shove the wave, even if we are able to. Maybe we'll be overextended. Maybe we lose a trade with the enemy because we are on cooldown. We don't have our abilities to run or trade with the enemy, and that's bad. And the other scenario is not always we have a teammate available for us. We can just call a teammate to help us every time we need, although it's priority. If you are in a game and you see your teammate is frozen and you have to break the freeze for them, you can't just let them get behind more and more. Sacrifice some minions, sacrifice a jungle camp. It's really important to have them break the freeze so they don't get more behind in the game. So guys, is there any other ways to break the freeze essentially, or turn this losing situation into a good one or an even one or even a better situation than it is? My theory originated from mechanics from the game and from other games. For example, from the game is proxy, where a player farm between two towers, the T1 and the T2, or the T2 and the T3, or sometimes since players like to go all the way in the base and farm two waves at the same time. And other mechanics are from Dota 2, pulling, stacking, and blocking. Pulling essentially is when the support pulls the minions to his carry through the jungle, from the enemy lane through the jungle to his lane, and his carry farm the minion wave there. And blocking is when a laner, top, mid, bot, block the minions physically, which make them arrive late to the lane. And assuming the enemy didn't block their minions will arrive faster to the lane, therefore fighting an advantage closer to his tower. And stacking is where support or anyone on the game can stack jungle camps, therefore netting more gold and XP for the player who take the jungle camps. Now in League, we don't have the same mechanics as in Dota 2. For example, minion aggro doesn't work the same as Dota 2. The minion aggro is bound to lane, and the minions' movements are bound also to the lane. You cannot block them. Your minions, you cannot block them. They are phased through you. They are not affected by your champion's model. And jungle camps do not stack. My theory goes like this. If you are ever going to be frozen in the top lane or in bot lane, you're going to be losing a lot of waves. So what's going to happen essentially, you're going to be put behind. You're going to lose from 2 to 3, 5 waves. And even if it's a permanent freeze, you're doomed. So I'm going to show you an example of my theory. We're going to talk about it and we'll see. This is the example of my theory. And I just say for the sake of argument that this is a freeze. This is not a freeze actually, but I just pretend it is. So, in this case, when I'm frozen, I'm gonna lose a lot of XP, a lot of gold, a lot of waves. If I try to contest and push the freeze, I'm gonna be zoned out, I'm gonna be traded, and my opponent will always be ahead in the trade because he's holding the power in the lane, he's controlling the lane. Although I have priority to roam and do other stuff, but my resources are being hit. I'm being super, super, super behind. Now, what make a freeze is the constant wave feeding into it and meeting at the same place that your opponent is controlling and trimming the wave every time. Now, if we remove this element of feeding the wave every time, we're gonna break the freeze, which is the goal of my idea. And we also have to talk about having the ability to read waves before it happened. For example, I have to be understanding when my opponent is gonna freeze on me because I cannot afford to let the freeze happen just like that and then react upon it. Because if I know my opponent's gonna freeze, I'm gonna act instantly and I'm not gonna lose a lot of XP and waves. So, when you are frozen upon, you're gonna lose one wave and so on, much more. In this scenario, I said let's pretend this is a freeze. I'm gonna lose one wave. Okay, I'm gonna lose one wave. Imagine your opponent just started freezing and you're gonna lose one wave. I move to here, and what I'm about to do is intercept this minion wave and hold it back here for about 10 to 15 seconds. Now, what does this do? Look, I delayed the arrival of this wave to here, so my opponent cannot sustain the freeze, and my wave's gonna arrive first and clear these minions and crash in the tower. Of course, that depends on how the opponent reacts to what I'm doing. And my opponent is limited to 3 reactions. 1, either chase me. 2, crash the wave under the tower. 3, tank the whole wave. So, in all of these 3 examples that I mentioned, the freeze is gonna be broken, no matter what he do. Because I'm stopping the only thing that makes a freeze, which is the continuous feeding of the waves. I messed up with the arrival time of the wave. Another thing, let's dissect every move of my opponent. He tries to chase me. In this example, he tried to chase me. Successfully, I die to a gank from Gwen. It doesn't matter because I did this blindly. I couldn't see. I just did this because for the sake of a video. Now, if you execute this perfectly and knowing that you're not in danger and you see the mid laner in mid lane and you see the jungler in bot lane and so on, you're safe practically. Even if he chases you, you can just run around the bush and just keep going and just run away to your lane. And the freeze is broken essentially. Another thing, he tried to let the wave crash. If he let the wave crash, he basically just lost the freeze. Essentially, simple as that. The third option is to tank the wave. If he decides to tank the wave, he's gonna get a hit on his HP because you cannot tank a full wave and some extra minions, literally, because these minions will die because I stopped the feeding of the wave, and he cannot tank it. Even if he juggle aggro with a bush here, he will lose HP, and maybe he loses his potions. Maybe when I come back to lane, I force a summon out of him. All these little things add up to me winning the lane. Now, let's see what happened. I go up, I die here, and look. The wave crashed under the tower, and it's getting hit. Now, the wave state is coming back to me. Of course, I gave up priority over the lane to break the freeze. Now Camille, she have priority, but she lost control of the lane. She's no longer controlling the lane because she lost the freeze. You see? Now the wave will push into me. And I come back to catch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and a cannon worth of XP and gold. Another thing, guys. This idea, in theory, it doesn't work on mid lane. Because mid lane, first of all, is narrow. It's easy accessible from other lanes. And you don't have so much room to work with in mid lane. Because the waves comes faster. And as I said, like mid lane is really an easy place to access it. So it doesn't work in mid lane. Also, in bot lane, you can go behind enemy tower and just eat the whole wave. Just eat it, just fast clear it, and just go back to your lane. This is a risky move also because it makes you overextended too, but it helps you break the freeze and you don't lose gold, you don't lose XP. Alternatively, for both scenarios, you can send one of your teammates to hold the wave for you. I'd like to bring out the example of a pro player setting up a dive to mimic the situation when you are frozen and you call your jungler to execute this idea. Pro players set up a dive and they just go behind the tower and they wait for the minions to crash and then set up the dive. For me, the dive is risky because sometimes it ends up bad, trading for one or even goes 1 for 2 sometimes. But the jungler can just stop the minion wave, hold it back for 10 to 15 seconds, and then your wave is crashing, it's gonna bounce back to you, literally, and then gank a lane gank. Just simple as that. Or in bot lane too, like you send your support to block the wave for you, and the lane's gonna be pushing back to you and making your enemy ADC overextend. So this theory is high risk, high reward move, but it have pros and cons. The pros, it has break the freeze, gives you option to freeze also because the wave's gonna be pushing to you, and it makes the enemy overextend for CS. The cons is it makes you too overextend too much to stop the freeze from happening. Like if you do it without vision, you're gonna be doomed. You're gonna be exposed to collapses from the enemy team. Sometimes it costs you a summoner spell or a roam from a teammate, which their time is valuable too because they have a lane to manage, they have camps to take, they have a carry to support, and sometimes it costs you about a full wave if you try to do it by yourself. But here I can argue this point, the C point, because I prefer to lose one wave rather than keep losing waves essentially, because if the player is gonna perma freeze on me, I'd make this decision like, what do you choose, to lose one wave or to keep losing waves? So I'd like to lose one wave rather than keep losing waves. Okay, now this idea was inline in theory in learning phase. Now what I see for the future of this idea in other use cases than breaking the freeze, well, I see it as creating a wave state towards you, macro-wise, to either disable a winning lane or helping a losing lane to get back online sooner. So basically, you're making the opponent extend for CS outside of laning phase in mid game or late game, and then punish them for that. B, create a conflict point on the map to fight over. For example, in pro play, when they don't have any objectives to fight on, the game just go stable and nobody is fighting, nobody's doing anything. It's just vision and farming until the next objective come. So what this does, it create something that people can fight over and on the map, which is not an objective, but it create an objective essentially to people to fight for. And this leads me to my third practical usage is create a bigger income for your hyper carry to get more gold and XP. Let's just say, for example, you have a Jinx that is safely farming in top lane, in mid lane, or in bottom lane, and you need that carry to get items sooner. What you do is go with your team and take control over a quadrant and hold the wave there. Hold one wave or two wave as much as you like. And then when the waves are pushing to you, you get Jinx safely to take all that wave stack. You know, like essentially are just stacking waves for your carry. Literally. So this will create a conflict point, as I said. Teams won't let you do this because they know it's gonna net you more gold for your carry. In conclusion, this is just a theory. It's not practice. I've never seen it before done. So I made this slideshow video with a couple of goals in mind. First, I just want to make an impact on the game. This is a good game. I'd like to be part of it, and I'd like to see this applied in a strat or even in high elo. This is my goal, literally, just to make this strat viable and helpful to people who play in the game. And my second goal is to help inspire other people to think outside of the box. Maybe get new ideas, innovate in the game, especially with the upcoming jungle changes. The game is gonna keep changing. It's not gonna stay the same. So maybe I help inspire other ideas. Of course, this is just an idea, but I do believe in the future it will be utilized. And let's face it, pro play and high elo sometimes are slow to catch on things because either they are afraid to test new things or they are afraid of change. But I do believe it will be helpful and maybe game breaking. I really hope you do test it and give me your honest feedback, and I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Thank you.